Yo, Bachi 2007 back at you with another one. We're going to get into this two cases. So both from about the same time, 20 plus years ago. Well, they're a couple of years apart, but this Duke Lacrosse case, if you weren't around for it, this was a huge national story. This black woman here said she was paid to dance at a Duke Lacrosse team's party they were having. I think that part was actually true, but then she claimed to have been raped in the bathroom by these three college students. They got expelled from school. They got arrested. They were put on trial. All of this ran across it was major in the news. Their whole lives were wrecked, and she boldface lied, and now she's admitted it. Here is her in her own words.
I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't, and that was wrong. And I betrayed the trust of a lot of other people who believed in me. Um,
It's just incredible. Just incredible. Hold on. Let's listen to it a little bit more.
and made up a story that wasn't true because I wanted validation from people and not from God. And that was wrong when God already loved me for who I was. Uh,
I did it for validation. And here's the kicker about it. Again, this was a huge national news story. They went all the way to trial, and she was willing to stick with this just made up lie, not exaggeration of something that did happen, just complete lie, just for validation. What do we tell you about women over here, man? Everything they do is about some kind of validation. Man, they sit up and lie about why they want to have their hair long and stringy and put staples and glue in their head to try to look like white women and claim they're doing it for themselves. Why they would put these snuffleupagus tarantula eyelashes on their face and always claiming they're just doing it for themselves. Lies. Everything they do is for validation from others. A lot of times it's for validation of being able to beat out other women, just to be the one on top, whatever the case might be. Whatever it is, but the fact that she would go through all of the public scrutiny, the press conferences that she did in front of national media, go all the way to trial through a legal system, and just continue to lie. I mean, they have no qualms. People who like to do this have no qualms about going to the police and standing in front of the police, going through long interrogations. She just kept this up. This thing went on for like a year from the time she made the accusations till it went to trial, trial's completion. And she could just sit there and lie for validation. And this is why we don't believe all women. There's constant lying about men assaulting and raping women. I know somebody who did it. I remember a high school football teammate of mine got accused by a girl because her dad walked in, and so because she was scared to get in trouble with her dad, she just claimed homeboy raped her, and it was just a complete lie. This just goes on and on and on with these different instances. Of course, women actually get raped. Of course, there are many foul brothers who will force themselves upon women. But any notion that you just take somebody's word for it just cause is just mind-boggling and outrageous. So that takes us to the Jay-Z case and his accuser. So for starters, Tony Bugsby, if you guys didn't recognize the name, when I first heard this story and heard his name, I knew exactly who he was. He's the lawyer who got together all the accusers against Deshaun Watson. And while it's pretty clear Deshaun Watson did something, whatever the specifics is, you don't hire when you're a millionaire who can get professional massages. You don't keep calling women off of Facebook to do body rub sessions who aren't actually licensed masseuses to come to some weird room with you to give you a massage when they're not even masseuse. They're not even licensed. It's just weirdo stuff. So he's a weirdo. There's no doubt about that. But in some of the cases might be accurate, but that Tony Bugsby in that situation was culling together a lot of just random women with way out stories, no evidence. A lot of the stuff is just like, what are you talking about? Like dates didn't match up. This is what this guy does. And so that's what Jay-Z is saying that is happening here. His lawyers on Friday, I believe it was, filed a response to the complaint against him where they were pointing out that there was no veracity to the story that the girl is telling, and that Tony Busby didn't do any due diligence. He just took the girl's story at face value, and that there's really no legal basis for the claim because the basics of her story don't match up with anything. All she has is her claiming it. We're going to let, she responded to NBC News. She did an interview. NBC News, I understand, not NBC News, the lawyer had NBC News fly down to Houston to meet, because his Tony Busby's offices are in Houston, had them come to Houston to meet with his client to litigate this thing in the public, which was supposedly he wasn't going to litigate this in the public. It was outrageous for Jay-Z to be responding in public or whatever. But he actually had the news company meeting his client to talk about this in the news rather than take care of it in court. Let's hear what she had to say in this interview that I think was probably also on Friday.
I stumbled upon Diddy's driver, who told me that I was exactly what Diddy was looking for.
What did you think when he said that to you?
I thought it meant that I was just pretty.
She went to a White House, she says, where she spoke to musicians Benji Madden and his brother.
I'm talking to Benji Madden about his tattoo because, I have about his tattoo that's the Last Supper, because I have a religious background. So it was just something to talk about.
In a statement to NBC News, a representative of the Maddens confirmed that they did not attend the 2000 VMAs and that they were on tour in the Midwest at the time. At the after party, she says she had a drink that made her
They weren't even there. Weren't even there.
feel woozy. Then she says Combs and Carter took turns raping her while a female celebrity watched.
JC comes in and rapes me. He at that point I was fighting, trying to get away from him, and he put his hand over my mouth and told me to stop it, cut the.
After the alleged rape, she says she ran to a gas station where she called her father, who picked her up and drove her home.
We rode home in silence. He didn't ask me what happened. He didn't ask me what I did or where I was.
In an interview with NBC News, her father said he could not verify the claims. Quote, "I felt like I would remember that, and I don't. I have a lot going on, but I mean, that's something that would definitely stick in my mind," he said.
So even her dad is saying, not only is he saying I don't remember it, but he's like, I definitely would remember that if that happened. I would remember a night when I had to come pick her up and she was disheveled, even if she didn't tell him what happened, that he would remember picking his daughter up late at night across town when she was 13 and disheveled and distraught. And it didn't happen. He's going like out of his way to be like, I definitely would remember that if it happened. So what he's saying is, it definitely didn't happen. He's not even trying to support his daughter like, well, I don't remember it, so I can't testify to say anything. But if she says it happened, I'm sure it happened. He's not even doing that. He's going the opposite direction of saying, nah, if it happened, I'd remember it. That ain't happened. That's how much of a lie this is turning out to look like. All right. So that's not the end of the inconsistencies and things that make no sense. So she says she hit one of them in the throat and grabbed her clothes and ran out the room naked. Said, like they said, ran down the street to the gas station. So there was a house full of people who saw a 13-year-old girl running naked through the house. Nobody said anything. Nobody remembers anybody. She didn't see anybody who was actually there and not touring in the Midwest like those two band members who she claimed she spoke to at the party, but they were on the other side of the country on tour. Nobody saw her, no nothing. She didn't see any other celebrities there that she recognized that she could point out who could vouch for this. Okay. The gas station attendant, nobody called anything in to the police. Nobody saw anything, nothing. All right. Well, here's the real kicker. Jay Z and Diddy did party together after the VMAs in 2000, but they were at Lotus nightclub. And here's a picture. This is them at Lotus nightclub that very night after the VMAs. They were not out a house party. Now you could say, hey, they party hopped. They went to two different parties in the night. But here goes a thing about that. Here's why the time of what when she said about what time it was when this happened. We're going to go to something on that real quick. We're going to get this piece of information from Pam Esquire, or she has it listed on here as Pam ESQ. Hold on, let me pull up so you can see it, David. Pam ESQ, the law intellect. So this is her live stream the other night that is on rebroadcast now.
Dakota Blake said, I noticed in the initial complaint by Busby, he put out a time of 9:30 p.m., but in the amended complaint, he took the time out. Oh, okay. Good catch, Dakota. So you're saying in the original complaint, he said all this happened at 9:30, but in the amended complaint, he took the time out because the math was not mathing. Okay.
So they initially gave a time for when this assault at the house party supposedly took place. But we know that the only place we know of that Jay Z and Diddy were definitely was at this club here. And if they can prove that they were at the club, en route to the club, anything like that around the time 9:30, 10:30, which he's claiming this is happening, then that whole claim goes out the window again for another reason. So it just keeps on mounting. Then I think I had another point. Let me see for my. All right. Well, that was about it on the facts of this particular case with this 13-year-old back 24 years ago. Here goes the end point. With Busby, as I was noting with the Deshaun Watson, I think he's definitely a weirdo who's up to some weird stuff. He was Busby was piling on because I think he had like 40 or 50 complainants. I'm trying to remember back to that case a couple years ago, and I think some of them were legit. But obviously, he would pile on extras. He even put in a new one this year in September. They came up with a new lady who all of a sudden has complaints against Deshaun Watson. And what was clear even then was a lot of these were just piling on, where there was something real that happened in some situations. He was just trying to find as many people, anybody who had any tangential ever bumped into Deshaun Watson, any woman who Deshaun Watson ever even looked at, he was trying to get her in to be on the case. And while I definitely think this is the kind of thing that Puffy probably would have done, I really don't see Jay Z doing this. Y'all got to remember, Jay Z he's always hidden his age. Like when he started calling himself Young Hove around that second or third album, dude was already like 28 years old. It's like he's like doing a mind trick to call himself Young Hove. He was already one of the oldest people in the rap game. I mean, of course, there were guys who had been out years before him who were much older. But his class, people who came out in 94, 95, 96 time period, like Nas was at the time was like 20 years old. Jay Z was like 28. He's way older than the rest of the people in his class. This dude is almost 60 right now. So the point of what I wanted to get to with that is I can see where somebody could be through peer pressure. Young men could be caused or have in certain instances engaged in gang rape activity because their boys were doing it and they didn't want to like the chump and they couldn't pull themselves away. Jay Z wasn't a 17-year-old. He was 27, 28 around this time. A rich man who owns a multi-million-dollar company and has everything to lose. He's going to rape somebody in front of other people, let them run out the room naked and not do anything to stop it, and it's just nonsense. It doesn't even make any sense. I don't believe it. I never believed that Jay-Z would have been engaged to something like this. Kind of maybe uh Puff, but even then I don't think he would have been this reckless about it. But then all the facts come in and show you got the lawyer who likes to pile on these cases. He'll take somebody who's actually done something. He'll try to go find anybody out there and try to make a fake case so he can make as much money as possible by settling as many cases as he possibly can. This is how he makes his millions. So you put it all together, it looks like a big scam. And again, just because a woman says something doesn't mean it happened. That lady who was giving that interview, she has autism. She said it earlier in the interview. I didn't play that part of it. And maybe there's just something a little bit off with her. Maybe something did happen to her that night, but it wasn't. It probably wasn't Puff and Jay Z at a White House that they probably weren't at because they were at the Lotus Club. All right, Hibachi 2007. I'm out on this one. Like, subscribe, notification bell, all that good stuff, and we're out of here.